If you've ever told yourself, this time will be different, and still found yourself falling off track, you're not alone. Almost everyone wants consistency. People talk about it like it's a personality trait, like some people are born with it and others aren't. But that isn't true. Consistency is not who you are. It's what you practice, and the frustration you feel when you can't stay consistent isn't a flaw. It's a signal. Most people don't fail because they don't care. They fail because they care deeply, set high expectations, and then judge themselves harshly when they can't maintain them. You start strong. You feel motivated. You imagine a better version of your life. And then, somewhere along the way, the energy fades, life gets boozy. You miss a day. Then, another. And suddenly, the voice in your head says, "Here we go again." That voice is powerful. It convinces you that inconsistency means weakness, that if you were more disciplined, more focused, more driven, you wouldn't struggle like this. So you try to fix yourself. You look for a new system, a new routine, a new burst of motivation. But the real issue isn't effort. It's how you think consistency works. Consistency is often misunderstood as doing something perfectly, every day, without fail. That idea alone is enough to make anyone quit. Because the moment you slip, the whole thing feels broken. And when something feels broken, most people walk away from it. But consistency isn't about never missing. It's about never quitting. It's about how you respond after the mistake, not how well you perform before it. The people who seem consistent aren't stronger than you. They've just learned how to keep going without making it dramatic. If you can't stay consistent, it doesn't mean you lack discipline. It means you're playing by rules that were never designed for real life. And once you see that clearly, the struggle starts to make sense in a different way. Because before you can build consistency, you need to understand what's actually breaking it. The main reason consistency feels so hard is because most people tie it to motivation. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel focused. They wait for the right mood, the right time, the right energy. But motivation is unreliable by nature. It rises and falls. It responds to sleep, stress, emotions, and circumstances. You can't always control. Consistency, on the other hand, has nothing to do with how you feel in the moment. It's built on something much quieter. It's built on identity and expectation. Not who you hope to be someday, but who you choose to act like today, even when it feels ordinary. When you expect yourself to perform at your best every time, you create pressure, and pressure creates avoidance. You start to associate the habit with stress instead of progress. So your mind looks for relief. It looks for excuses. Not because you're lazy, but because you're human. The shift happens when you lower the bar, but raise the frequency. Doing something small, consistently, trains your brain to trust you again. It removes the fear of starting. It makes the action feel safe instead of overwhelming. Consistency grows when the task feels manageable on your worst days, not impressive on your best ones. That's the part most people miss. They design routines for the version of themselves that's fully motivated. But the real test is what you do when you're tired, distracted, or discouraged. This is why simple actions done repeatedly outperform intense efforts done occasionally. Your brain learns through repetition, not intensity. Every small follow-through sends a signal that says, "I keep my word to myself." Over time, that signal becomes belief. And belief becomes behavior. Consistency is not a push, it's a pull. You don't force it. You design for it. You make it easy to begin and hard to quit. And once that structure is in place, you stop relying on willpower. You rely on momentum. But understanding the principle is only part of it. The real change happens when this idea meets your everyday life. Think about how your days actually look, not how you wish they looked. You wake up with good intentions, but the day fills up fast. Messages, work, responsibilities, unexpected problems. By the time you remember the habit you wanted to build, the moment feels gone. So you tell yourself you'll do it tomorrow. Tomorrow will become a pattern, not because you don't care, but because the habit never found a stable place in your life. It was floating, dependent on free time and perfect conditions. Consistency shows up when actions are attached to real moments. After you wake up, before you shut down for the night, right after something you already do. This removes decision. You're no longer asking, should I do this? You're simply following a sequence. In daily life, consistency often looks unimpressive. It's choosing the smaller option when your ego wants the bigger one. It's stopping before burnout instead of pushing until you crash. It's doing enough. Not everything. This applies to exercise, learning, work, and even mindset. Showing up for 5 minutes still counts. Writing 1 page still counts. Making one better choice still counts. The habit doesn't grow because of the size of the action. It grows because you showed up again. And when you miss a day, consistency is protected by how you respond next. You don't negotiate with guilt. You don't reply to the failure. You simply return, calmly, quietly, without punishment. Daily consistency is not about control. It's about rhythm. A rhythm that fits your real life, not a fantasy version of it. When the rhythm fits, the habit survives stress. It survives low energy. It survives bad moods. This is how consistency becomes part of who you are, instead of something you chase. But even with the right approach, there will be days when resistance shows up. Doubt creeps in, and old patterns try to pull you back. That's not a sign you're failing. It's part of the process. At some point, everyone hits resistance. You feel it as boredom, frustration, or the urge to quit. The habit doesn't feel exciting anymore. The results feel slow, and the mind starts asking, what's the point? This is where most people stop, not because they can't continue, but because they misread the moment. They think resistance means something is wrong. In reality, resistance usually means something is working. When a habit starts to change you, the old version of you pushes back. Not aggressively, quietly, through doubt, through distraction, through comfort. It tries to bring you back to what's familiar. Self-doubt shows up. You start comparing yourself to others. You question whether your effort is enough. You replay past failures and assume the ending will be the same. But the past doesn't get to decide this time, unless you let it. Setbacks are not proof that you can't be consistent. They're proof that you're human. What matters is whether you treat setbacks as a stop sign or a pause. A pause allows you to breathe, adjust, and continue. The calm response is the powerful one. No dramatic restart. No punishment. No emotional speeches to yourself. Just a simple return to the next small action. Consistency strengthens when you stop making it emotional. You don't need to feel confident to continue. You don't need to feel inspired. You just need to stay connected to the process. Every time you continue without drama, you weaken the old pattern. You teach yourself that quitting is no longer the default response. And that lesson compounds over time. And once you stop fighting yourself, once you stop expecting perfection, consistency becomes less of a struggle and more of a steady presence in your life. So what does this look like going forward in a way that actually lasts? Consistency isn't built in a moment of intensity. It's built in quiet moments that no one sees. It's built when you choose to continue without needing recognition, motivation, or proof that it's working. You don't need a new version of yourself. You don't need a perfect plan. You need a simple commitment you can honor. Even on ordinary days, especially on ordinary days. The goal is not to transform your life overnight. The goal is to create a pattern you don't have to escape from, one that feels sustainable, one that fits your energy, one that respects your limits while still moving you forward. When you take small actions consistently, something shifts. You stop arguing with yourself. You stop starting over. You build trust, and that trust becomes the foundation for bigger change later on. Quiet consistency compounds. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't rush. But over time, it changes how you see yourself. You become someone who shows up. Someone who continues. Someone who doesn't disappear at the first sign of difficulty. And that identity matters more than any single result. If you've struggled to stay consistent, don't make it mean something negative about you. make it information. Adjust the approach, lower the pressure, keep the connection. You don't need to do more. You need to do less, more often. Start where you are. Choose the smallest action that still feels like progress. Do it today, then do it again tomorrow. No drama, no promises about the future, just presence in the next step. That's how consistency is built. Quietly, gently, and for the first time, in a way that actually lasts.